The world's most famous palace was never built for a king, but for a secret no one was meant to find? For centuries, it stood as a symbol of power, perfection, and silence. But behind those walls lie stories that were buried, not lost, and their cost was far greater than gold. We'll explain everything in this video, don't skip it. Yet when it first emerged in 1703, it was no palace, just a house, a quiet brick and stone ambition tucked among narrow lanes, owned by the Duke of Buckingham, a man driven as much by desire as by debt. The building was modest by royal standards, with windows that looked out upon gardens that were little more than untamed plots of earth, where roses struggled and the wind whispered secrets through young oaks. It seemed ordinary, but ordinary is always the first mask of greatness, the quiet beginning of obsession. The Duke, despite his wealth, was never content, never satisfied. He saw in those walls not a home but a stage, a theater for a life that would be measured in grandeur, influence, and the sharp, unyielding gaze of society. He spent fortunes he could scarcely afford, bringing in craftsmen who shaped stone as if they were shaping dreams. Each brick, each carved cornice, was an investment in a vision the world would not yet understand. It was a house built as a reflection of desire, yet already marked by tension. Servants scurried in shadows, hands trembling over candle flames as the Duke's guests arrived in carriages glinting with polish and brass. They came to admire the house, to marvel at its novelty, unaware that every flourish of paint or gilded doorframe carried a hidden price. The sleepless nights of builders, the arguments over debt, the silent fears of those who kept the house functioning. In the parlors, chandeliers shimmered with crystal drops, each refracting the anxieties and ambitions of a man who sought to leave a mark larger than life. It was beauty built on obsession, a quiet tension beneath every floorboard, a subtle echo that would follow the house into centuries yet to come. And then the house passed into other hands, its walls absorbing new ambitions, new forms of obsession. In the 18th century, it became a symbol not of private indulgence but of public display. Wealthy owners came, each bringing architects who bent the building to their vision. They added wings, expanded gardens, replaced modest shutters with gilded frames, yet in each addition there was more than style. There was a yearning, almost a desperation, to prove one's worth in a society that measured power in estates, in public recognition, in the quiet murmurs of peers. Guests whispered as they walked through the newly extended galleries, unaware that the house's growth mirrored the fragile pride and insecurity of its owners, each expansion a testament to ambition and anxiety intertwined. The transformation from house to palace is not a single act but a series of delicate, almost imperceptible shifts. When King George III first laid eyes on Buckingham House, he saw not the modest beginnings but the possibility of dominion. It was 1761, and the crown had its eyes on a home that could be molded into a symbol, a throne from stone and timber. Architects were summoned. Gardeners worked into the night, reshaping the land as if the earth itself could be coerced into loyalty. The house became more than bricks. It became a mirror of human desire for permanence, for legacy, for a mark that would outlast mortality. Yet in this process, countless quiet stories were written in whispers. A maid who lingered too long to watch the king's plans unfold. A gardener who saw his labor trampled by sudden redesigns. The nervous courtiers measuring every angle for advantage. The house, though still unnamed as a palace, was already alive with human emotion, with tension, with hidden costs that no ledger could ever account for. By the time Buckingham House became the official residence of Queen Victoria in 1837, it had shed the modesty of its origins, yet retained the invisible weight of the past. The grand rooms reflected opulence, yet the echoes of ambition, of hidden debts, of the fragile egos of its builders, remained trapped in the walls. Servants moved in choreographed precision, shadows passing through shadowed halls, each footstep a quiet testament to the labor of those unseen. The palace, now the seat of a kingdom, bore witness to celebrations that dazzled the world, but also to private sorrows that went unrecorded. A queen might stand on the balcony, her figure a symbol of authority, yet in private chambers she navigated isolation, expectation, and the burden of legacy. Behind the golden facades, lives were quietly upended by the demands of duty, by ambition, by the unspoken cost of sustaining beauty and power. Every window of Buckingham Palace holds a story, each floor a testament to human tension. The East Front, with its imposing facade, could inspire awe, yet it also bears silent witness to countless arguments, quiet betrayals, and longings that could never be fulfilled. The wings added over decades carried not only more rooms, but more human emotion, more labor, more obsession. Pain and pride were stitched into every seam. Visitors might admire the architecture, the gardens, the fountains that glimmer like captured stars, and yet beneath every polished surface lies a hidden ledger of effort, of sacrifice, of hope deferred and desire magnified. And there is a rhythm to its history, a pulse that cannot be seen but can be felt. Ambition followed by tension, beauty shadowed by cost, celebration shadowed by sorrow. It is a house of paradox, a place where human desire and human frailty collide. Every generation that touched Buckingham Palace added another layer, another whisper, another trace of longing or obsession. Even the quiet corridors tell stories. A footstep echoing too late at night, a whispered conversation that carried more fear than gossip, a servant watching from behind a door as the lives of the powerful unfolded, unaware that their own stories were just as entwined in the history of the house. And so, Buckingham Palace began not as a monument but as a living organism, absorbing the ambitions and obsessions of those who passed through it, reflecting them in stone, timber, and glass. Its evolution from a modest house to the residence of kings and queens was neither simple nor serene. It was a slow, deliberate accumulation of human effort, of desire, of tension, of quiet sacrifices invisible to the world. The palace is more than a building. It is an archive of the human spirit, a testament to what is gained and what is lost when beauty and power collide. In its shadows dwell the echoes of those who built it, those who served it, those who sought to claim it for themselves, and those who loved and suffered within its walls. It is a place where history breathes, not in documents or paintings, but in the very air, in the subtle creak of floorboards, in the faint glimmer of chandeliers, in the quiet weight of ambition carried across centuries. The first time you see Buckingham Palace in full sunlight, it appears eternal, a fortress of elegance suspended between the sky and the earth. Yet that impression hides the restless hands that built it, the countless hours of labor that passed unseen, the obsession that shaped stone and timber into a monument that would both inspire awe and demand loyalty. The facade stretches across the horizon like a promise and a warning at once, neoclassical lines so precise that every column seems to declare order over chaos. Yet beneath that perfection lies the human toil of masons who bent over chisels until their backs ached, their faces streaked with dust, their sweat absorbed by the very walls that now gleam with quiet authority. In the gardens, fountains leap like liquid diamonds, each droplet a testament to meticulous planning. Yet the serenity they offer conceals the tension of countless gardeners, their hands blistered, their sleep stolen, laboring to tame nature into patterns that would please the eyes of kings and queens. There is beauty, yes, but also obsession. A fragile, expensive beauty whose price is measured in human exhaustion as much as in gold leaf. Every arch, every gilded frame, every sweeping staircase carries a story of ambition and the costs hidden behind grandeur. The grand entrance rises like a challenge, as though daring the visitor to question not only the power contained within but the sacrifices required to create it. Craftsmen carved ceilings with designs so intricate they seem alive, each painted angel and curling vine a triumph over time. Yet each stroke was also a confrontation with fatigue, with doubt, with the relentless pressure of patrons who measured worth in perfection. And still, those ceilings remain, centuries later, whispering the tension of hands that worked unseen, the quiet murmurs of laborers whose names history forgot, but whose skill shaped the very soul of the palace. Light falls upon them unevenly, as if the shadows themselves remember the human strain, the fleeting moments of triumph mixed with exhaustion, the obsession that transforms work into art. Walking through the marble hall, the sense of scale overwhelms not just the body but the mind. Columns reach toward the heavens, polished surfaces reflecting chandeliers that rain crystal light like frozen stars. Yet even in this opulence, there is evidence of compromise, of choices made in tension between ambition and reality. Stone quarried from distant lands carried in wagons over muddy roads, artisans summoned from across Europe to bring visions to life, contracts negotiated with precision and sometimes with deception. Each detail, though sublime, represents an invisible ledger of effort, of struggle, of human will pressed to its limits. The hall is magnificent, yet magnificence is a fragile companion, dependent upon the countless individuals who bore its costs in silence, their sweat invisible in the reflected brilliance of candlelight. The throne room commands attention not merely through ornamentation but through its careful orchestration of emotion. Golden railings glint, but they are not simply decoration. They are statements of control, signals of hierarchy that manipulate the observer's awe. Every throne, every tapestry, every mirrored panel is curated to elevate status while simultaneously exposing vulnerability. It is easy to imagine the minds of the designers, sleepless nights spent perfecting proportions, the obsessive measuring of light and shadow, the fear that one misaligned motif could undermine the grandeur, that one flaw could betray the countless hours invested. Visitors may only see beauty, but the palace itself remembers the anxiety that preceded every flourish. Every gilded line drawn with trembling hands under the scrutiny of those for whom mediocrity was unacceptable. In the Queen's Gallery, the walls are lined with paintings, whose colors have endured centuries, yet their survival is testament not only to material, but to vigilance. Restoration teams, past and present, have labored like quiet saints, their lives entwined with pigments and varnishes, learning the pulse of each canvas, understanding that a moment of carelessness could erase centuries of human attention. The paintings, though static to the eye, hum with the energy of those who preserved them, who spent days leaning over delicate surfaces, hearts thudding with the fear of irreversible error. They understood that beauty is fragile, that wealth is ephemeral, that a palace, no matter how vast, depends upon the devotion and obsession of those who maintain it, unseen and often unacknowledged. And yet it is not only the grand halls that breathe with life. The corridors connecting wings carry their own tension, quieter but no less intense. Footsteps echo differently here. The marble and oak seem to remember patterns of movement, the nervous pacing of courtiers awaiting audiences, the silent passage of servants carrying trays of silver and porcelain, the hurried scurry of palace officials balancing expectation and protocol. Each echo is layered with human emotion, the anxiety of anticipation, the exhaustion of obedience, the strain of maintaining appearances. Here, beauty is a stage, and every individual becomes part of the performance, whether they choose it or not. The palace is not merely a home, it is a theater of ambition, of obsession, where every space is designed to impress, intimidate, and inspire, and where the quiet, often unseen, labor of countless hands sustains the spectacle. Even the gardens, meticulously arranged, hold tension beneath their serenity. Paths curve with precision, hedges sculpted into geometric perfection, fountains timed to reflect light in deliberate patterns. Yet the act of creation was not tranquil. Workers labored in heat and rain, sculpting earth and water as if negotiating with nature itself, striving to produce harmony from chaos, to achieve beauty while confronting exhaustion. Every petal trimmed, every stone aligned, was a negotiation between human desire and natural resistance, between vision and limitation. The gardens are perfection only because imperfection was fought against, silently, obsessively, with a relentlessness few would ever see. And above all, the palace itself watches, silent and eternal, absorbing every tension, every ambition, every human obsession. Its architecture is both a promise and a weight, the promise of grandeur, the weight of expectations and sacrifices. Each facade, each gilded detail, each polished floor tells of minds obsessed with legacy, of hearts burdened with responsibility, of bodies that endured to produce an image of power and beauty. Visitors may admire its symmetry, its scale, its sparkling interiors, yet they cannot see the heartbeat beneath the stone, the tremor in the air left by centuries of devotion, fear, pride, and longing. It is a palace built not merely for royalty, but for the human spirit itself, its desires, its tensions, its obsessions, its unspoken costs. And so, Buckingham Palace stands, a living monument, simultaneously awe-inspiring and unsettling. Its architecture dazzles, yet every polished surface, every shining column, every echoing corridor is infused with human emotion, a reminder that perfection is never free, that grandeur demands sacrifice, that beauty is inseparable from tension. It is a palace that captures light and shadow alike, that preserves not just history, but the pulse of every hand, every eye, every heartbeat that labored to create it, that maintains it, that walks through its halls, forever entwined with its story. Buckingham Palace is more than stone and gilding. It is a vessel of lives lived in extremes, a theater where ambition, love, grief, and secrecy converge beneath ceilings heavy with history. The palace holds memories of footsteps that no visitor will ever hear, of whispers that never reach the public ear, of glances exchanged across opulent rooms where every movement carried meaning, weight, and consequence. Even in the grandest halls, where light from crystal chandeliers scatters across polished marble, the tension of human expectation lingers like a quiet fog. Kings and queens moved within these walls with ceremonial precision, their every gesture recorded and scrutinized. Yet beyond the public eye, every event bore hidden costs, invisible to the crowds, yet indelibly etched into the palace itself. The early days of royal residency were a careful performance of authority and elegance, but the palace quickly became a crucible for human emotion. Court gatherings were choreographed like ballets of power, every invitation, every seat, every toast calculated to maintain favor. Yet behind the smiles and curtsies were hearts racing with fear and desire. A young queen, navigating the suffocating gaze of advisors and foreign dignitaries, would retreat to private chambers where the walls absorbed her doubts, her private longings, the quiet terror of inheriting a kingdom that measured every failure against history. Guests marveled at glittering gowns and endless banquets, unaware that each celebration demanded sleepless nights for the servants, endless preparation, and a precision bordering on obsession that could crush those who faltered under its weight. Even the most ordinary days carried the tension of extraordinary lives. Courtiers moved silently along polished corridors, their footsteps a rhythm of compliance and ambition, carrying messages and observing the subtle hierarchies that determined fortune or disgrace. One misstep, a glance, a word, a missed curtsy could ripple through the palace, reshaping careers, relationships, even marriages. Within the kitchens, the clatter of trays and the hiss of boiling water echoed with the pressure of invisibility. Servants worked tirelessly to maintain appearances, to ensure that the smallest imperfection did not betray the vast machinery of wealth and power. Each polished surface, each meticulously arranged bouquet, was a small battlefield where human patience, pride, and fear intersected, leaving invisible scars that lingered long after the banquet ended. The palace has witnessed both celebration and catastrophe, often in the same space, often in ways that the public could never imagine. During state occasions, crowns glittered, and music swelled to fill the great halls. Yet just beyond the golden walls, tragedies unfolded in silence. Children of the court were confined by expectation, their laughter muffled by the weight of duty. Lovers were separated by protocol, their longing hidden behind painted doors and gilded railings. The grand staircase, ascending in majestic sweeps, was not only a path of triumph, but also a corridor of anxiety, where those ascending faced the scrutiny of a society that measured worth in elegance, composure, and obedience. The palace demanded perfection, and imperfection came with consequences that echoed long after the echo of footsteps had faded. Some events have left scars on the palace itself, both literal and metaphorical. During the Blitz, bombs tore through London, and yet Buckingham Palace stood, a defiant symbol of continuity. Windows shattered, walls trembled, and the sound of destruction mingled with the silent prayers of those within. Lives were imperiled, servants and staff risking everything to protect the building and the people inside. Yet even as the palace survived, it absorbed trauma, its floors remembering the fear and hurried footsteps, its corridors whispering the anxiety of those tasked with shielding both royalty and history. The grandeur of the palace, always on display, concealed the profound vulnerability of those living within, a tension that history records in fragments but never fully recounts. Love and loss have left invisible imprints as potent as any architectural detail. A prince, isolated by duty, may have lingered in a dimly lit gallery, watching his reflection in a polished frame, imagining lives that could never intersect with his own. Secret romances, forbidden by protocol, thrived in hidden corners, their excitement and danger magnified by the weight of expectation. And when grief struck a sudden death, a scandal, a betrayal, the palace bore witness silently, the echoes of mourning blending with the echo of celebration. Rooms designed for pageantry and awe became confessional chambers of private sorrow, their ornate surfaces reflecting not only light, but the hidden currents of human emotion that flowed ceaselessly beneath the surface. Every coronation, every state visit, every banquet has added layers to the palace's memory, layers built not only of ceremony but of human tension. Guests arrived in opulent carriages, their jewels glinting in the morning sun, yet beneath the glitter lay calculations of power, negotiations of status, and the quiet fear of misstep. The palace orchestrated these interactions like a symphony, yet each note was fragile, dependent upon the discipline, discretion, and ambition of all involved. Servants carried out tasks with the precision of dancers, aware that a dropped tray, a smudged tablecloth, a misaligned silver fork could alter perception, reshape relationships, even threaten the fragile equilibrium of power. The architecture itself guided human behavior, corridors and halls engineered not only for beauty, but for control, for subtle coercion, for the management of lives intertwined with privilege and vulnerability alike. And yet, for all the tension, the palace has always been a space of revelation. Secrets seep through the fabric of its walls, hidden messages delivered between confidants, whispered plans for political maneuvering, unrecorded moments of courage and sacrifice. A servant who risked punishment to protect a royal child, a minister who lingered in shadow to overhear plans that would change history, a lover who slipped unseen into a gallery at midnight. These moments are invisible to history, yet indelibly etched into the atmosphere of the palace. The grandeur amplifies human emotion, the beauty intensifies obsession, and the combination produces stories that are both extraordinary and achingly intimate. Time itself moves differently within these walls. Minutes stretch, weighted by expectation, by tradition, by the subtle pressure of history itself. The palace records everything in a way no archive can. Footsteps, whispers, silences, glances. It bears witness to human obsession, to the tension of ambition, to the hidden costs of maintaining appearances. Every event, whether celebrated in public or endured in private, becomes part of the living memory of Buckingham Palace, a memory written not only in ink or stone but in the rhythm of daily life, in the heartbeat of those who serve and those who are served, in the invisible ledger of effort, sacrifice, and emotion that underpins every gilded corner. And so, Buckingham Palace is not simply a residence or a stage for spectacle. It is a living chronicle of human tension and devotion, of obsession and care, of sorrow and triumph. It is a place where every banquet, every audience, every celebration or quiet act of courage contributes to a tapestry of hidden stories. Its beauty commands attention, yet it is the quiet human drama behind the scenes, the servant's sweat, the courtier's fears, the hidden romances, the grief, the courage that makes the palace alive. Its grandeur is inseparable from the emotion it contains, the secrets it preserves, and the tension it amplifies, ensuring that every stone, every gilded frame, every polished corridor vibrates with the invisible pulse of lives lived in the shadow of power. Buckingham Palace stands today as both a monument and a living entity, its stone and gilding whispering stories of centuries, of lives entwined with the pursuit of beauty, power, and permanence. From the moment dawn brushes the facades, light slides across the columns, reflecting not only grandeur but the labor, patience, and obsession required to sustain it. Every window gleams as if polished by invisible hands, yet each pane conceals the meticulous attention that maintains them, the hours spent scraping, dusting, aligning, in a quiet battle against decay and time. Visitors see perfection, symmetry, majesty, yet beneath the surfaces lies a relentless effort, a human devotion that is both invisible and indispensable, the tension of lives bound to a structure that demands as much as it offers. Walking through the halls today, one senses the pulse of history in motion. Guards move with measured precision, their boots striking stone floors in rhythms that echo centuries of ritual and discipline, a reminder that the palace is not merely a residence, but a stage where human expectation and ceremony intersect. Yet behind every gesture, every polished step, there is human emotion, pride, fatigue, devotion, the quiet anxiety of those entrusted with maintaining the delicate balance of tradition and function. Servants, custodians, conservators, each carries an invisible weight, a silent understanding that the beauty before them must be preserved, that even a small lapse could ripple across centuries. The palace is living because people sustain it, because every careful sweep of a brush, every alignment of a gilded frame, every flicker of candlelight is an act of reverence and obsession. The rooms themselves are archives of tension, labor, and human presence. The throne room, polished to perfection, commands awe. Yet it is also a testament to unseen effort. Stone that must be cleaned without marring its history, mirrors that must reflect light without reflecting imperfection, chandeliers that must sparkle without a trace of dust. Every surface tells a story of labor hidden from the public eye, the quiet anxiety of those who work to ensure that ceremonial events proceed without flaw, the obsessive attention that transforms maintenance into art. Even as visitors marvel at the richness, the depth, the scale, the palace bears the invisible signatures of countless individuals whose lives are intertwined with its survival, whose devotion ensures that the illusion of eternal grandeur does not falter. In the private chambers, where royals live and move in their daily routines, the tension is subtler but no less profound. Bedrooms, studies, and galleries are curated with precision, each object placed to convey a certain history, to suggest order and control, yet each arrangement is also an exercise in the quiet management of human emotion. Personal moments, private grief, joy, and reflection are threaded through these spaces, but they are always measured against the expectations of legacy and duty. Even the furniture, the carpets, the draperies carry weight. They are reminders of past choices, symbols of authority, and instruments of continuity. Living here requires a mastery of restraint, of composure, of negotiation with both tradition and the ever-present gaze of the world. The gardens, meticulously maintained, are more than decoration. They are instruments of intention, expressions of control over time, space, and nature itself. Every hedge trimmed, every pathway laid, every fountain timed to catch the sun in a particular way is an act of human obsession, a daily negotiation with imperfection. Gardeners labor from dawn until dusk, shaping living things with the same precision demanded inside the palace walls, aware that a misaligned branch or a wilted flower could disrupt an illusion that has been centuries in the making. The serenity visitors experience masks countless hours of toil, the quiet sacrifices of those who sustain an ideal, and the pressure of expectation that comes with maintaining not only beauty but history. Even the infrastructure beneath the palace carries its own stories of tension and human cost. Electrical systems, plumbing, climate control, all modern necessities must coexist with walls that are centuries old. Engineers and technicians walk carefully through corridors that have borne the weight of kings and queens, ensuring that the comforts of the present do not damage the whispers of the past. Every decision is measured, every repair weighed against both functionality and legacy. There is an obsession here that extends beyond aesthetics. It is a meticulous negotiation between preservation and utility, between human need and historical responsibility, and it requires a constant awareness of fragility. The palace also serves as a mirror of society, a tangible symbol of continuity amidst change. From state ceremonies to royal audiences, it mediates power and perception, shaping how the world sees not only monarchy but the human stories embedded in its walls. Yet this significance carries tension. Every public display is underpinned by preparation, rehearsal, and meticulous management. Staff work in synchrony, invisible and precise, orchestrating light, sound, space, and gesture to create a narrative of grace and authority. The grandeur is never passive. It is actively maintained, consciously constructed, and deliberately preserved through the labor, obsession, and dedication of human beings who recognize the stakes of history and perception. Conservation efforts further illuminate the hidden costs of sustaining such a place. Artworks are carefully restored, marble cleaned, gilding renewed, fabrics preserved, each requiring specialists who understand not only the materials but the intention behind them. Every choice is weighed for historical accuracy and long-term sustainability, for a mistake could erase centuries of effort. Even the air within certain rooms is monitored, humidity controlled, light filtered, all to protect fragile treasures. These acts of preservation are themselves forms of devotion, exercises in obsession, and quiet narratives of human patience and endurance. The palace survives because of these uncelebrated labors, because individuals commit themselves to the impossible task of maintaining a living monument while respecting its history and its secrets. And yet, for all the precision, for all the beauty, the palace remains alive in its imperfections, in the subtle creaks of wood, the faint sigh of settling stone, the irregular shimmer of light across gilt surfaces. These imperfections remind all who enter that it is not only stone and gold, not only symmetry and design, but a repository of human experience, where labor, ambition, love, grief, and obsession coexist. Visitors may admire it for its elegance, scholars may study it for its history, but the palace itself contains the pulse of those who sustain it, the quiet tension of its caretakers, and the deep, unspoken resonance of lives intertwined with its survival. Buckingham Palace today is a convergence of past and present, a stage for ceremony, a home for royalty, and a testament to human devotion. It stands because of centuries of labor, because of countless acts of care performed in silence, because of the obsession required to sustain beauty and order in the face of time's relentless passage. Every polished surface, every gleaming window, every meticulously arranged detail is both a triumph and a negotiation, a visible mark of invisible tension. The palace is significant not only for its grandeur, but for the human effort, emotion, and sacrifice that give it life, creating a space where history is felt as much as it is seen, where beauty is inseparable from its hidden costs, and where the passage of time becomes part of the narrative written in stone, wood, and gilding. Even as they work, the palace absorbs their efforts, the walls remembering both care and fatigue, the floors reflecting the quiet rhythm of human obsession, the unspoken costs of maintaining beauty against the inevitable erosion of time. It is not only material preservation that demands attention. The palace exists in constant negotiation with human expectation, tradition, and symbolism. Every restoration, every conservation effort must honor the past while anticipating the needs of the present. Architects and historians confer endlessly, debating whether a decision preserves authenticity or risks erasure. Every gilded frame, every polished stair, every ornate fixture becomes a site of human decision-making, a locus where expertise, intuition, and ethical judgment collide. The palace itself becomes a witness to obsession, a silent participant in the tension between what was, what is, and what must endure. The gardens, too, are part of this living negotiation. Paths laid centuries ago must be maintained in harmony with the growth of trees, the flowering of plants, and the subtle rhythms of the seasons. Gardeners labor under the weight of tradition, pruning, shaping, and nurturing with the same obsessive care demanded within the walls of the palace. Every rose aligned, every fountain synchronized, every foot of lawn measured and tended is a small act of human devotion, a quiet battle against the encroaching chaos of nature. The gardens are alive with movement, yet their perfection is fragile, dependent upon skill, patience, and a relentless vigilance that few outside their caretakers understand. Even modern technology is woven into the preservation of Buckingham Palace with delicate attention. Climate control, lighting, and security systems operate silently beneath floors and behind walls, calibrated to ensure the longevity of both structure and artifact. Engineers walk carefully among centuries-old stone and timber, aware that each alteration, no matter how minor, can shift the balance between preservation and damage. The interplay of innovation and tradition, of human ingenuity against the slow erosion of time, is a tension that defines the palace as much as its architectural elegance. Every sensor, every meter, every controlled beam of light represents an act of careful calculation, a negotiation with forces both seen and invisible, a quiet obsession with continuity. The palace's legacy is also bound to human stories, the lives of those who maintain it, who inhabit it, who navigate its endless corridors. Each generation adds its own layer of devotion and strain. Servants, staff, curators, and security personnel engage in labor that is often invisible, their accomplishments measured not by public acclaim but by the imperceptible success of preservation itself. Their labor is bound by ritual and routine, yet it is infused with the awareness of fragility, of the delicate equilibrium between human effort and historical endurance. Every polished surface, every repaired tapestry, every stabilized marble column carries the imprint of human tension, subtle yet profound, a reminder that preservation is never merely technical but deeply emotional. The palace must also survive the pressures of public scrutiny, an audience that expects continuity, perfection, and accessibility. Tours, ceremonies, and state events demand spaces that are simultaneously authentic and functional, creating a tension between preservation and performance. Every footstep of a visitor, every flash of a camera, every rearrangement for a banquet or a diplomatic audience is weighed against the invisible ledger of care, the meticulous attention that keeps centuries-old materials intact. The balance is delicate, requiring constant vigilance, an understanding that beauty can be disrupted not only by time and neglect, but by the well-intentioned engagement of those who admire it. And yet, the palace is resilient, not only in stone and timber but in the human commitment that sustains it. The legacy of Buckingham Palace is not just architectural, it is the endurance of the human spirit, the persistence of obsession, care, and devotion across generations. Every decision made in the present resonates with echoes of the past. A conservator chooses a pigment, knowing it must harmonize with centuries-old work. A gardener prunes a branch, aware it continues a vision planted long ago. An engineer maintains a hidden conduit, conscious that its stability preserves the lives and labor of all who dwell above it. Preservation is a dialogue across time, a negotiation between what was, what is, and what must be, conducted in silence and reverence. The palace also teaches that legacy is inseparable from tension. To preserve grandeur is to engage constantly with imperfection, to confront the inevitable erosion of beauty, to understand that even the most meticulous care can never fully halt time. Every gilded frame, every polished floor, every restored tapestry is a reminder that human effort is both finite and profound, that beauty depends on vigilance, and that the cost of sustaining majesty is often invisible, uncelebrated, yet indispensable. The palace's elegance is inseparable from the quiet labor, the obsessive care, and the unspoken sacrifices that allow it to endure. In the quiet moments, when the halls are empty and the sunlight falls through high windows, the palace seems to exhale, carrying the traces of centuries of devotion. Its walls hold not only the grandeur of kings and queens, but the pulse of those who care for it, those who labor in shadow, those who measure every movement, every material, every breath in service of history. Every echo along a corridor is a reminder of continuity. Every glimmer on polished marble, a testament to human perseverance. Every garden path, a line in an unbroken story of obsession, attention, and quiet heroism. Buckingham Palace survives because of human dedication, because of a shared understanding that beauty, history, and legacy demand sacrifice and vigilance. And so, the palace moves forward, not as a static relic, but as a living testament to the labor, obsession, and devotion of countless individuals across generations. Every brushstroke, every repair, every aligned hedge carries the weight of responsibility and the quiet thrill of preserving something extraordinary. Its significance is not merely historical or aesthetic, but deeply human, a dialogue between those who came before, those who maintain it now, and those who will inherit it in the future. Buckingham Palace exists as both monument and organism, a place where the past breathes through walls, where human obsession shapes stone and gardens alike, and where legacy is constantly negotiated in the delicate balance between beauty, time, and the invisible efforts of those who refuse to let it fade. Buckingham Palace is not merely a palace, it is a labyrinth of hidden histories, secret corridors, and whispers that have never reached the public ear. Beyond the gilded doors and glittering halls lies a world known only to those who move through shadows, who carry messages, who witness moments never recorded in history books. The public sees grandeur, symmetry, power, but few pause to consider the human stories embedded in every stone, every echo, every faint vibration of the floors. There are rooms no visitor enters, staircases no tourist climbs, and doors whose hinges have heard confessions, fears, and ambitions too delicate or dangerous to be shared beyond walls of polished oak. Even the most familiar spaces hold traces of quiet obsession, of labor, of decisions made in isolation, whose consequences ripple invisibly across time. In the bowels of the palace, hidden tunnels weave beneath marble floors, their stone walls absorbing the footsteps of those who passed in secrecy. They were designed not merely for convenience, but for survival, for discretion, for the negotiation of risk and power. During times of war, they became arteries of safety, carrying people, messages, and treasures away from danger without disrupting the serene facade above. One can imagine the tension of those who traverse these narrow passages, hearts pounding, aware that exposure would mean disgrace or death. The palace above continued to glimmer, chandeliers scattering light across polished halls, while below, in silence and shadow, human courage and fear coexisted in a delicate balance that history would almost forget. There are stories of servants who knew more than anyone else, of individuals whose loyalty and discretion shaped history as much as any decree or law. One maid, working quietly in a forgotten wing, may have intercepted a scandal before it reached the throne, her knowledge a shield, her silence a weapon. A gardener, hidden among clipped hedges, witnessed clandestine meetings between nobles, their whispered strategies carried on the wind through trimmed labyrinths of foliage. Each act, each observation, each choice to speak or remain silent carries its own weight, a tension compounded by fear, ambition, and the invisible costs of protecting both the palace and those within it. The elegance above hides these tremors, yet they pulse through the air like faint currents beneath still water. Even objects within the palace hold secrets. Portraits are more than decoration. They are vessels of memory, capturing moments of joy, despair, and silent rebellion. Behind painted smiles and posed hands lie glimpses of personal struggle, the quiet longing of sitters constrained by duty, the subtle gestures that hint at stories lost to history. Tapestries depict not only myth and lineage but obscure messages woven by artisans who may have embedded irony, critique, or even sorrow within the threads. Chandeliers, whose crystals catch sunlight like frozen tears, have hung over moments of triumph and tragedy alike, reflecting not only light but the unrecorded tension of those beneath them, bearing witness to events that shimmer in memory even if they are absent from public record. The palace gardens, too, hold tales unseen. Labyrinthine pathways and hidden alcoves have witnessed clandestine meetings, secret rendezvous, and whispered confessions carried on the scent of roses and clipped hedges. One can imagine a royal figure stepping quietly through the mist, the dew on the lawns absorbing the anxiety of anticipation, every rustle of leaves a companion to unspoken emotion. Even fountains, rising like silver specters, have been present at moments of decision, their waters catching light as if to preserve the fleeting intensity of private human experience. The grandeur of the gardens conceals the obsession and care required to maintain them, yet also the private stories they silently contain, moments never celebrated yet forever alive in the pulse of the landscape. There are rooms that never open to the public, spaces whose very existence is a secret known only to a select few. In these chambers, personal letters lie in drawers, objects are catalogued in silence, and memories are preserved with care and discretion. A prince's journal may rest unnoticed beneath a writing desk, its pages chronicling thoughts and fears that the world was never meant to see. A confidant might move through these rooms daily, tasked with maintaining not just order but secrecy, aware that knowledge itself is a burden heavier than any crown. The tension between transparency and discretion, between duty and curiosity, is embodied in the quiet maintenance of these hidden spaces, shaping how history is preserved and experienced in ways that remain largely invisible. Even the palace staff carry secret knowledge, their labor entwined with the weight of human expectation. Those who polish floors, maintain fabrics, or adjust lighting for ceremonies do more than preserve surfaces. They preserve continuity. They sustain illusion. They safeguard memory. Every gesture is a negotiation with fragility, a recognition that the palace's grandeur is contingent upon human vigilance. The quiet obsession of these individuals ensures that history is not only remembered but experienced, that beauty is maintained without eroding the complex web of emotion, ambition, and secrecy that has defined Buckingham Palace for centuries. And beyond the walls and gardens, there are intangible secrets, subtle currents that ripple through time, decisions made in silence, emotions restrained in service of duty, obsessions that shape the palace as much as architecture or gold. One can sense the tension of centuries, the quiet pulse of ambition, the hidden costs of maintaining grandeur, not only in physical labor, but in the restraint and discretion of those who inhabited the palace. The building itself seems to breathe, remembering every clandestine meeting, every whispered word, every moment of courage or fear, embedding them into its stone, its wood, its gilding. The palace's hidden stories are reminders that beauty and power are inseparable from cost, that every gilded surface, every polished floor, every sculpted garden is inseparable from human emotion and effort. To walk its halls is to be surrounded by not only art and architecture, but by a living archive of tension, loyalty, obsession, and courage. Each room holds echoes that will never be spoken aloud. Each corridor contains traces of footsteps that will never be recorded. Each shadow might conceal a story that could shift our understanding of history. Buckingham Palace is thus not only a residence but a repository of human experience, a monument to both the visible and the invisible, a place where curiosity is rewarded with whispers, not answers, and where the observer is drawn into a world of subtle emotion, delicate intrigue, and timeless mystery. Even the palace itself seems aware of its secrets, its architecture designed to both reveal and conceal. Windows frame views of gardens while hiding alcoves. Doors lead to grand halls or to corridors unseen. Ceilings soar above rooms where joy and tragedy coexist, their painted surfaces reflecting light while preserving shadows. It is a place where tension and beauty coexist in perfect equilibrium, where every detail, however small, is imbued with human intention, labor, and emotion. Those who enter, even briefly, become part of a continuum, witnesses to a subtle, ongoing story that is as much about restraint and discretion as it is about power and splendor. Buckingham Palace holds more than history. It holds the pulse of the human spirit in tension, the quiet labor of those who maintain it, the obsessive attention to beauty and legacy, the secret moments that have shaped lives and decisions. It is alive with stories that are never written, never photographed, yet remain forever imprinted in the walls, the floors, and the very air. Its secrets invite curiosity, yet they are not easily satisfied. They demand patience, attention, and imagination, revealing that behind every polished surface, every gilded frame, every pristine garden, there exists a complex interplay of human ambition, emotion, sacrifice, and obsession that has sustained the palace across centuries and will continue to do so for generations to come.